and it says the machine.
So we're now on episode 2. Last time we saw that there wasn't really any conclusive evidence of what was stopping the engine turning over. And so this time I'm going to start looking at all the auxiliary stuff on the front of the engine and seeing if that's causing anything. And seeing if anything's maybe blocking the flywheel, like the starter motor or some crud in there. Yeah, let's see. Oh, and I got a comment last time that I shouldn't have been turning the engine over on the camshaft, which is quite right, because what I didn't capture on film was when I made it skip a cog by putting too much pressure on it. I don't know if that's had any ramifications, but anyway, it's definitely not something to be done. Right, so we've got the car up on axle stands. I think, let's see what's happening underneath. There was no belly pan underneath. There's the alternator. I wanted to check all these to see if they were implicated in the jamming, but that's moving, that pulley's. I'll get it off in a bit and do a double check. Air conditioning here. Can't move that, the clutch seems to be alright, I guess. I don't know what that is. Then there's another device up there. I'm not sure what that is. And I think that's the power steering above the alternator. Anyway, let's get a light up there. It's all there. It doesn't look too rusty. There's the sump. Can't see any too much oil leakage, and there is oil in there. I checked that. And then there's a couple of random wires that have come off. There's one there, and there was another one. Hang on. Let's have a look at the back. See much. Nice orange oil filter. Clean that to see what type it is. All the suspension components look kind of okay and in place. I can't see any damage. One thing that's interesting, the chassis rails are dented. So it's either been picked up by a forklift, I guess, or it's just been bottomed out on stuff. To see what that means later on. But then, moving forward, we've got the starter motor. There's a wire that's just come off there. I'm going to take that off today to see what's happening with the flywheel. I'll take this bit here, which would otherwise have the clutch, I think, and have a look and see what like the ring gear is like. I'm wondering if the starter motor is jamming the engine. So let's do that next. See if we can do it like this. 13mm. It's off. Oh. Right. That's one. Oh, and two. Let's see what horrors lurk in here. Oh. Can't really see much. They look ominously like sawdust. Let's see if hopefully that's a good picture. I can have a look a bit later at the video. But those teeth don't look too bad to me. They look pretty nice. Right, let's give a little bit of a root around and see what shit comes out. Okay, so getting a bit closer to the starter motor. You can see here a bit of Porsche approved wiring loom modification. Nice connector block and some really corroded wire. It goes on to this, I guess that's the solenoid signal from the ignition. It needs to make a good contact. Alright, well, let's get on with getting this off and see what happens. These bolts are a bit rusty, but they're coming off. Of course, I'm doing this with a 12mm spanner. Can't find my 11. No doubt it'll turn up. But I think these are all metric. Let's see. Right, I've got both hex head bolts out. The one behind was a bit of a faff, but mole grips on the short end of the Allen key did the job. Let's see if we can get this persuaded. Let's start with the rubber one. It's coming. Oh, there we go. Let's get it. I'll turn this off and use both hands. Right. So here's the starter motor on the bench. We've got it wired up to a battery power. Battery pack looks okay. I've got the positive on the incoming terminal. It's not easy to turn. Oh, there it goes. Oh, it's kind of keeps. It's not easy, and so if I touch to this one, I should be getting something, I think, unless that's the ballast terminal. Maybe I should be on the other one. Let's see. Could be a bad earth too. Let's see what this does. I've mounted it in a vise now and put some lithium grease down the gear thing there, and now it is really going very well. Right, now I'm getting the auxiliary belts off. Let's see if any of these are seized. So this is the alternator. It's probably not quite the correct order, but it's all a bit bent down here. Take this apart and straighten it up. But it's kind of moving. Everything is moving so far. Bit more to go, perhaps. Right, that's the belt off. Sounds good. Tiny bit bearing. No plate. Oh, feels good. So the power steering belt is now off, and the power steering pump appears. Okay, well, at least it's turning. Right, so the air pump belt is off, and that's free running too. So the last belt will be the air conditioning belt, and then we'll get into the timing belt. Just found the first bit of damage or broken stuff. It's here, the bracket for the air conditioning pump or air compressor. Breaking the bracket there. But so far it's amazing, all the bolts have come undone really, really easily. Amazing. Aircon belt off. Had to cut it off in the end, I couldn't get enough movement in the air conditioning compressor. And that seems to be spinning fantastically. And that is spinning, so that wasn't the problem either. I've now removed the plug leads and labelled them, and the top radiator hose. So there is coolant in there. It's kind of murky, but it does smell a bit coolanty. Still, we'll carry on. Timing cover's now off. Everything looks to be in place. It's quite oily. Interestingly, there doesn't seem to be a 45-degree mark. Maybe that's not the right side, but that might indicate that this is a non-interference engine. It's an M2812, which is 4.7, 300 horsepower. We can also see some nice black oil there, which I think is a good thing, because it means that the last time the oil was in here, it was being used, rather than somebody putting brand new oil in to see if they could get it started and failing. I think that's the optimist's point of view. Okay, so next stage is to get the timing belt off and then see if the water pump is frozen or the oil pump is frozen, whether the cams are frozen, and to double check if it's an interference engine or not. That'll be interesting. Definitely a blue tinge to the coolant. Let's hope it's always been like that. I've slackened off the timing belt, and the water pump goes, the oil pump goes. In a second I'll just make sure that the cams go round. Next thing to do is get the tensioner off. Probably have to remove the dipstick tube, I guess. Well, that's the tensioner off. That's interesting that that pulley has stayed with the engine, and equally interesting, well, I guess it's interesting, because it looks like urine kissing out the hole. I guess this is one of those 3 bolts that goes into the water jacket. It's quite nice that it's coming out clean, I think, as opposed to all gunky. Right. And the final thing to do in this bit is to see if the cams go round. Yeah, that one. Let's look at this one. That one goes round too. Okay, so those aren't seized. And here's the air conditioning bracket, which is broken and splintered by these two big washers. That looks like it's been welded before. It looks quite thin. I imagine it shakes around a lot. And that is a distinctly non-Porsche looking arrangement. I'm just wondering, because also that, is that how they came off the shop floor? This looks to me like
I think it's an invented bracket, I guess. Oh well, we'll see. I'll have a look at some pictures. And here's the viscous fan. I've just cleaned, I guess that's a bimetallic strip that engages it earlier if the car is hot. It's this is the fan. I've cleaned what I think is the bimetallic strip there. There's still some friction inside, so I guess it's going to work, but it's really, really stiff. So I think it should turn more easily than that. So I'll stick some stuff in it, some penetrating fluid, and see what happens. Now running much better. Not quite sure how freely it should run. But that'll do for now. It's certainly easing up the more I do it. Amazing after 40 years. I presume this is the 40-year one. Using lithium grease, squirted some in both on the axles, both sides. Well, that was disappointing, wasn't it? Still no conclusive evidence of what is causing the engine not to turn over. I guess one thing's for sure now, it's inside, and it's probably something relatively serious. So I guess the next episode will be going even deeper. Let's see how far we get next episode.